Yeah. Hello everyone. It's a comprehensive revision of the whole syllabus of a CA final new course, and I'll make sure that I'll be using only English so that it will help us the day before exam to revise it more easily. And so let's get started here. So the notes that have been using here is ICAI compile material only. So if you have a standard study material of ICAI, as it is, this material has, and you all know this material is of from Atul sir. So if you are using ICAI study material, this comprehensive revision of the all the subjects. I'll be starting from FR, and I'll make sure that I'll be completing all the subjects of group 1 and 2 as well. So let's start our revision from today. So first in days I've selected is in days 115, and in this total we have 79 questions, and I think it takes two parts for us to complete whole questions in this. So the first question is New Way Limited. New Way Limited decides to enter into a new market, okay, which is currently experiencing the economic difficulty and expects that the future economy will improve. Now New Way enters into an arrangement with the customer. New Way, what it did, it enters into an arrangement with the customer, and the new region with the customer in the new region for networking products for the promised consideration of 12 lakh 50,000. And at the contract inception, the beginning of the contract, what happened? New Way expects that it may not be able to collect the full amount from the customer. It is not able to collect. Here, the collection is not probable. So this is as per Ind AS 115, that is revenue from contracts with customers. We have to determine that how New Way will have to recognize this transaction. So assuming that the contract is meeting all the other criteria. Now we know what are the other criteria that is covered in the scope of Ind AS 115. We have generally 5 criteria to be met. First one is the parties to the contract have approved the contract. The parties of the contract should have approved the contract. And the second one is that it can be approved through orally or in accordance with the other customary business practices, and they should have been committed to perform their respective obligations. These are first criteria. Second is the entity should identify each party's rights regarding the goods or services to be transferred. And the third is the entity should identify entity is able should be identity should be able to identify the payment terms. Okay, first is the contract should be approved, second party should have rights, third the payment terms should have been approved, and fourth the contract should have a commercial substance. Okay, and the fifth one is it should be probable that the entity will collect the consideration to which it will be entitled in exchange for goods or services. Here it should be probable. Okay, for evaluating whether the collectibility of the amount of the consideration is probable or not, then the entity will have to consider the customer's ability, whether the customer is able to give us the amount and whether he's having intention or not. We have to see two things. First one is ability, second one is intention to pay that amount of consideration when it is due. And the amount of consideration to which the entity will be entitled may be less than the price that is stated in the contract if the contract is variable, because the entity may offer the customer a price concession. So here five things should be satisfied. First, it should be approved. All the five criteria should be satisfied. Approved, they should have identified the parties' rights. Payment terms should be identified. The contract should have a commercial substance, and then the collectibility should be probable. And here the fifth one, here we are assuming that the contract meets all the other criteria, like all the four criteria. Last one, the collectibility is probable. We are checking that. We need to assess whether that collectibility is probable or not. So in making this assessment, New Way considers whether the customer has the ability and intent to pay the estimated transaction price, which may be the amount that is less than the contract price. So whether it is the amount less than the contract price, also you have to assess that. uh, how uh, how we are recognizing a contract, how we are recognizing this transaction means you have to assess that whether the customer has an ability and intent. These two things you have to check. Then you can say that whether the collectibility is probable or not. And the second question is entity G. Entity G Limited enters into a contract with the customer. G is entering into a contract, and here the customer is P Limited for the sale of the machine for two for 20 lakhs. Okay, for sale of the machine of 20 lakhs. And now, one second. Yeah, entered into a contract with customer P Limited. Here, P Limited is a customer. For what? For sale of a machinery for 20 lakhs. Now, P is intending to use the said machinery to start a food processing unit. The food processing industry is highly competitive, and here P Limited is not having any experience. He has only little experience in that food processing unit. Now, P Limited pays a non-refundable deposit. P Limited, what it is doing, it is paying a non-refundable deposit of 1 lakh at inception of the contract, at the beginning of the contract, and enters into a long-term financing agreement with G Limited for the remaining 95%. See here, 20 lakh is the total amount. In that, he is paying only 1 lakh. That is 5% of the total amount. That is as advance. That is as a non-refundable deposit. And the remaining 95% is he is entering into a finance agreement. He is entering into a financing agreement with G Limited. Now, yes, here P Limited is intending to pay primarily from the income that is derived from its food processing unit only, because it lacks any other source. It is not having any other source of income. And here, the financing agreement, the financing agreement, whatever the financing agreement is there, it is provided on a non-recourse basis. So it is not a recourse basis, it is a non-recourse basis, which means the major source, which means that if P defaults, if P has defaulted, then G can possess the machinery, but he cannot seek any further compensation from P Limited. So even if the full amount of the amount, even if the full value of the amount is owed, that is, even if the full value of the amount is to be paid and that is not recovered from the machinery, even then he can't get the full amount from P Limited. It's like that. And here the cost of the machinery is 12 lakhs, and P Limited obtains the control of the machinery at the contract inception itself. So here the cost is 12 lakhs, but he is entering into an agreement for 20 lakhs. He already received 1 lakh, right? And now for another 95%, that is 19 lakhs, he entered into a financing agreement. That is the question. Now what he's asking is to find, when should G Limited recognize the revenue from sale of the machinery to P Limited, when he have to recognize. So that's what he's asking us. So for that, you have to check whether when should the revenue to be recognized as per Ind AS 115. So here, as per this para 9, so as per, just forget the paras. We are not, we'll not write paras in exam, because we'll have many paras in our Ind AS. We won't remember that. So first we are going for Ind AS 115, revenue from contract with customers. We'll write that. And then an entity shall account for the contract with the customer. That is, within this, we have to account for the contract with the customer. As per Ind AS 115, revenue from contracts with customers, we'll account whether this 5 criteria is met or not. As we have already read, 5 criteria is the contract should have been approved. Second, parties' rights should be identified. Third, payment terms should be identified. Fourth, there should be a commercial substance for the contract. Fifth, it is probable that the entity will collect the consideration to which it is entitled to. Okay, in evaluating the collectibility, you have to check what? Customer's ability and intention to pay. That the amount of consideration will be received or not. That his ability and intention, whether he is going to pay the amount of consideration whenever it is due. You have to see that. So these 5 things you have to see. And the amount of consideration to which the entity will be entitled can be less than the price that, and it may be less than the price, okay, that is stated in the contract if the consideration is variable. Okay, if it is a variable consideration. Further, this Ind AS 115 requires that the revenue should be recognized. The revenue to be recognized, it should be, for a revenue to be recognized, it should be probable, means ability and intention. It should be probable that the entity will collect the consideration to which it will be entitled to in exchange for the goods and services. In exchange for the goods or services that will be transferred to the customer. So in the given case, you can say that it is not probable. Why will you say that it is not probable to collect the consideration to which the entity is entitled in exchange for the transfer of the machinery to P Limited? Okay, here P, you're saying that it is not probable to collect. It is not probable to collect the consideration for which G is entitled to. G Limited is entitled to. Why? Because P Limited ability to pay is uncertain. How can you say that it is uncertain? Because of 3 reasons. First thing is, P Limited intends to pay the remaining consideration primarily from the amount, primarily from the income that is derived from the food processing unit only. As we have already read in the question, P Limited has only little experience. P Limited don't have any experience in this food processing unit, and also this food processing unit is highly competitive. So here, P's intention, you can't say he is intending to pay. So this is the first reason why you are concluding that his intention is uncertain. I mean, it is not probable. Why you're concluding that it is not probable? And second reason is P Limited lacks resources. He don't have any other source of income except this food processing unit. If he don't get anything from this, he can't pay out. And third reason is P's liability is also limited. That is, the financing agreement is on non-recourse basis. That is, G Limited can't ask for any more amount than if he stops paying. Okay, so these are the reasons you can say why this is not it is not probable. Okay, in accordance with this three, in accordance with this, you can say that India is 115 criteria, all the five criteria should be met, right? So all the five criteria, any one not met, you cannot take this. Also this India is 115 is saying that when the customer, when a customer with a contract does not meet the criteria, means does not meet any one of the criteria in the five, and the entity receives the consideration from the customer, then the entity shall recognize the consideration received as revenue. When he will consider it as a revenue, when either of the two events have occurred. First event is the entity has no remaining obligation to transfer the goods or services to the customer, and and all or substantially all the consideration that is received from the customer should be non-refundable. Okay, whatever you receive should be non-refundable, and you should not have any remaining obligation to perform. That is, or any one should be satisfied. First one is that you should not have any remaining obligation, and second one is the contract has been terminated. The contract is terminated, and also the consideration received from the customer, and also the contract received from the customer is not refundable. These things you have to check. And next, these two things. Next, Index 115 also says that the entity shall recognize the consideration that is received from the customer as liability. So when you will recognize as revenue, either of the two events occurred, like you don't have any remaining obligation, and second one is the contract is terminated and not refundable. So if these two conditions are in any of the either of these two are satisfied, then you will recognize the consideration as revenue. Otherwise, the amount that is recognized as a consideration that is received from the customer will be a liability. Okay, will be recognized as a liability until one of the events that is as discussed above. Okay, or until the criteria, all the five. Okay, all the five that was discussed in Index 115 are subsequently met. So depending upon the facts and circumstances that is related to the contract, the liability that is recognized represents what? The entity's obligation to either transfer the goods or services in future or refund the consideration that is received. Either transfer the goods or services in future or refund the consideration that is received. In either case, the liability shall be measured at the end of the consideration received from the customer. So, in accordance with the above, in the given case, G Limited should account this non-refundable deposit, whatever he received before 1 lakh, as a deposit liability, because as in none of the events, that is either one of the event that we have discussed, that there should not be any remaining obligation, and the amount is not refundable. Sorry, the contract has been terminated, or the contract has been terminated and the consideration received from the customer is not refundable. Whatever we read, any of these two, as these two also both have not been satisfied, that's why you're not recognizing it as a revenue, but you have been recognizing it as a deposit deposit liability, because none of the events occurred. That is, neither the entity has received substantially all the consideration, nor it has terminated the contract. It has not received all the consideration, and second, it has neither terminated the contract. Neither of the condition occurred, so you cannot say that it is a revenue. You cannot recognize it as a revenue. You should recognize it as a liability only. Consequently, in accordance with this Ind AS, G Limited will continue. G Limited will continue to account for the initial deposit as well as the future payments of principal and interest as a deposit liability until all the five criteria is met. As a deposit liability only, all the five criteria that we have discussed, until all the are met, until all the five are met. That is, the entity is able to conclude that it is probable that the entity will collect all the consideration, or any of the events in para 15, that is any of the either of the two, that is no remaining obligations or the contract has been terminated and amount not refundable. Any of the two has occurred. Okay, all the five should occur or any of the two should have occurred to recognize it as a revenue. Until in all the five have occurred or any of the two occurred, we'll recognize it as a liability only. So G Limited will continue to assess the contract in accordance with this Ind AS 115 to determine whether the criteria as discussed in para 9 or any of the two events in para 15. In para 9, what we have discussed all the five criteria, that is in para 9. In para 15, what we have discussed, either of the two events should have occurred. So until these two things happen, you'll recognize it as a liability only. That one. Next question. So I'm assuming that you have understood this. You can again resume it back if you wanted a second revision for this. And next question is gymnasium enters into a contract. Okay, gymnasium, it enters into a contract with a new member, one member, okay, to provide an access to the gym for 12 months period at 4,500 per month, and the member can cancel his or her membership without penalty after 3 months. After 3 months, he can cancel the membership. Now specify the contract term. How what is the contract term? How many months? Generally, the enforceable rights and obligations of the contract are 3 months only. Why 3 months? Because the member can cancel his or her membership without penalty after 3 months. Until 3 months, if he cancels, he is liable to pay penalty. So here he has obligation to pay penalty up to 3 months only. And therefore the term is 3 months only, because after 3 months you don't have anything to pay, even though you are terminating your contract. It's like that. Next question. Manufacturer of airplanes for the air forces negotiates a contract, okay, to design and manufacture a new fighter planes for Kashmir Air Base. So here it's all about planes. Who entered? Manufacturer of airplanes entered into a contract, okay, for manufacturing these things, planes. At the same meeting, what happened? The manufacturer enters into a new separate contract also. Separate contract, that is that contract is not related to the first one. What is the first contract? To design and manufacture the new fighter planes. It is designing and manufacturing. And second contract, the same meeting, what happened? At the same meeting, they entered into a separate contract. That is to supply the parts for the existing planes. To supply the parts for the existing planes at the other bases. Okay. So now here contracts are negotiated at the same time, but they appear to have a separate commercial objectives. They appear to have a separate commercial objectives. Manufacturing and supply contracts are not dependent on one another, and the planes and the parts are not a single performance obligation. Therefore, here the contracts for the supply of this fighter planes and the supply of the parts are not combined. They are not the same. They are two different contracts. Okay, and instead they have to be accounted separately. As there are two different contracts, they should be accounted separately. Okay. And next question. An entity promises to sell 120 products to a customer for 1,20,000. Now, 120 into 1,000 rupees per product. One product is 1,000 rupees. That is 1,20,000. And here the products are transferred to the customer over 6-month period. The entity transfers the control of each product at any point in time. At any point in time. Remember, it is any point in time, and we have two things: over a period, over a point of time, and at a point in time. It is transferring, the entity transfers the control of each product at a point in time, like it is transferred, that is, okay, not over the period. And the entity has transferred the control of 60 products first to the customer, first 60 products, and then the contract is modified to require the delivery of additional 30 products. First they entered into 120 products, 60 products done. Now his obligation is to transfer only 60 products. But what happened? He entered into a additional 30 products again. Total what happened? 120 plus 30, 150. Now the total of 150 identical products to the customer. That additional 30 products is for only 950 rupees. That is in 120 and 120 plus 30. First 120 products are for 1000 rupees and next 30 products are for 950 rupees only. Okay, and this 950 rupees is a standalone selling price for which the additional for such additional products at the time of placing this additional order. And here the additional 30 products were not included in the initial contract. Whatever additional 30 products are there, that is not included in the initial contract. That is what is the initial contract? That is 120 products for which you have entered into a contract already. That 120 plus 30, these 30 products are not included in that 120. This is a separate contract. Now see whether determine whether it can be modified or not. Yes. Why? Because 950 is determining the standalone selling price. That's why you have to, it is a standalone selling price for such additional product. That's why you have to recognize a new and a separate contract. See, when the contract is modified, whenever the contract is modified, the price of the contract modification for the additional 30 products is the additional amount. That is 30 rupees. 30 products into 950 rupees. Okay, that is 28,500. Okay, 30 products into 950. Now here the pricing for the additional products reflects the standalone selling price of that products, right, at the point of the contract modification. And the additional products are distinct from the original products. Additional products, whatever the additional products are there, they are distinct. You can say they are distinct from the original products. Accordingly, the the contract modification for the additional 30 products in effect is a new and a separate contract. So you have to um, consider that 30 products is a new and a separate contract because they are distinct. Okay, new and does not affect. So here it is a new and separate contract for the future products. That does not affect the accounting for the existing products. Like whatever we have entered into 1,20,000 existing contract, that is 1000 into 120, that will not get affected. This new, this 30 into 950, whatever is there, that will be a new contract. Okay, and that's it. Next question is all about next question number 6. That is KLC Limited. On 1st April, KLC Limited has entered into a contract with Mr. K. With Mr. K. For what? To provide a machine for 2.5 million. Okay, to provide a machine for 2.5 million and 1 year of maintenance also, maintenance services also. So he is providing machine and also maintenance services of 55,000 rupees per month. Okay, and he entered this only from April to September. He entered this on April. And let's see. On first, why I told up to September? Because on 1st October again, KLC Limited and Mr. K, they wanted to modify the contract. They agreed to modify the contract to reduce this 55,000 to 45,000 per month. Okay, that is 55,000 from April to September. Next 45,000 is from October to March. Another 6 months. Okay, now we have to check how you will determine the effect of change in the contract, how you are affecting the change in the contract. Okay, let's say as per me it should be a termination of the existing contract and creation of a new contract, like existing, because here it is a service, so that should be terminated first and then new contract should be entered into. It is not distinct. Let's see, the next 6 months of the contracts are distinct from the service that is provided in the first 6 months. Okay, before modification in the contract, they are distinct. Therefore, KLC Limited will account for the contract modification as if it were the termination of the existing contract, because that contract 55,000 is already done. You need not, once the service is provided, the service is already done, expired. The service is expired. You need not provide the same service again. The thing is, for the next month, you are giving fresh services. So the old contract is already terminated. In the before problem, what I had said is 120 products. In 120 products, 60 products are only transferred at a point in time. Another 60% are supposed to be transferred. They are not yet transferred. Okay, that's why we have considered it as a new and separate contract modification. It is also new contract, but now we are in this service also we are going into a new contract, but the old contract is getting terminated completely because 6 months services are already done. Another 6 months services is for only 45,000. So we can't change the service that we have already provided. So it's already done. So you're terminating that 55,000. Now the new agreement will be 45,000 into 6 months. That's it. Okay, so here the consideration that is allocated to the remaining performance obligation will be 45,000 into 6 months. That is 2,70,000. Right? That is the sum of which is the sum of this is the sum of the consideration that is promised by the customer, including the amount already received from the customer that was included in the estimate of the transaction price and had not yet been recognized as a revenue. The amount will be zero. And here the consideration as a next is the consideration as a part of the contract modification is that is 2,70,000. You have to check the old one is terminated, that's why it will be zero, and the new one will be 2,70,000 contract modification. Next question is question number 7, that is Growth Limited is entering into an agreement with a customer for infrastructure outsourcing deal. For what infrastructure outsourcing deal? So based on its experience, Growth Limited is determining that customizing the infrastructure will take approximately 200 hours. When you wanted to customize an infrastructure as a whole, it is taking only 200 hours. Okay, to complete the project. And for that, he's charging per hour, he's charging 150 rupees. That is 200 hours into 150 rupees per hour. Next, after incurring 100 hours, what happened? After incurring 100 hours of time, Growth Limited and the customer agreed to change the aspect of the project. They wanted to change the aspect of the project and increase this estimate of labor hours. So whatever 200 is there, 200 hours is there, they wanted to increase the estimate by 50 hours. That is, now total hours will be 250 hours. Okay, and the 50 hours rate will be only 100 rupees. Okay, for the first 200 hours they entered into 150 rupees. Now for this 50 hours they are entering for only 100 rupees. Now determine how the contract modification will be accounted for as per Ind AS 115. Here, considering that the remaining goods or services are not distinct, considering that the remaining goods or services are not distinct, the modification will be accounted for. How the modification will be accounted? There is something called as cumulative catch-up basis. It will be accounted for us like that. It is a cumulative catch-up basis. That is, first you will recognize the initial contract amount. That is 200 into 150. That is an initial you have already entered into. Okay, have already entered into it is 200 into 150. That is 30,000. Now new contract is entered only for 100 rupees. That is 15 to 100. That is 5,000. Now here the contract amount for modification will be how you have to check on it. That is total hearts are 250 hearts, but here total amount is 35,000. 35,000. Now how you got the rate? That is 35,000 divided by 250. You have to do like that. You have to take the whole amount because you have already paid 30,000 plus 5,000. Okay, you have already paid 30,000. Now cumulatively you have to catch up one thing. Catch up that 140 rupees will be cumulatively. You have to check. See that that 140 will be the rate for which you have to recognize the whole revenue. Okay, here what is the revenue to be recognized? Because you have only provided 100 hours. See, after incurring 100 hours, you enter into a contract. After incurring 100 hours of time, then you enter into for additional 50 hours. That is, 100 hours are already provided. For the 100 hours already provided, you need to for that also you are using this new rate, cumulative catch-up rate. That is, you have 30,000 plus 5,000 divided by 250 hours completely. 35,000 divided by 250 hours. That is 140. You are using that 140 rate for the revenue for the hours for the service labor hours that you have already provided. 100 hours are already provided. So 100 into 140 will be recognized, and revenue to be recognized is that, and remaining 100 hours that is already provided, already booked because it is already provided is 15,000. Now you have to adjust, you have to reverse the revenue that you have already booked. That is 15,000 minus 14,000. You have to recognize 1,000. That is, you are supposed to book only 14,000 because on cumulative catch up basis you are supposed to book only 140, but you are booking 15,000, so you are reversing 1,000. Your revenue to be recognized is supposed to be recognized, not yet recognized, not yet recognized. In this 200, 100 is not yet recognized. So that's what you're doing here. And next question, it's just a revision, so I'm not going into more detail. Next section, question number 8, it's just a revision for the day before exam. Yeah, so that it will give you a fastest review. Okay, if we are not supposed to catch the book and read, so that some topics can be covered like this. I'll be covering all the topics. Okay, I'll make sure that I'll cover all the topics. And next, so kindly you can follow this so that it will be easier for your revision. As I'm following only ICI material. Like in every subject, I'll be following only ICI material. It may be a complaint of anyone. I'll be following ICI questions only, so that it will be easier for us to revise. Because ICI needs only its content. Next question is 8. Construction services company enters into a contract with the customer. It's also a construction service company. It enters into a contract with the customer to build a water purification plant. It's a water purification plant, and the company is responsible for all the aspects of the plant, including overall project management, engineering, and design services also. See, the company is responsible for what? Overall project management, okay, engineering, overall project management, engineering and design services, site preparation, physical construction of the plant, procurement of pumps and equipment also for measuring and testing the flow volumes, for measuring and testing the flow volumes and water quality and integration of all the components. So here you have to determine whether the company has a single or a multiple performance obligations. How many performance obligations you have? Because you are only constructing a water purification plant here, and that includes so many services. So here, while checking whether it is a single or a multiple, you have to check determining whether a good or a service represents a performance obligation, like represents a performance obligation on its own, or is required to be aggregated with other goods or services, can have a significant impact on the timing of the revenue recognition. Like when you're recognizing the revenue, see whether a good or a service, one good or a service, okay, which is representing a performance obligation on its own, or is required to be aggregated with the other goods and services. Okay, uh, whether it have to be accounted singly or aggregated. Okay, that can have a significant impact on the timing of the revenue recognition. That's what he wanted to say. In order to determine how many performance obligations are present in a contract, so for determining how many performance obligation for building a water purification plant, okay, the company applies this guidance only that we have just studied. So while the customer may be able to benefit from each promised goods or services, each promised goods or services is for building a water purification plant. For building a water purification plant, see, you are determining whether the good or service represents a performance obligation on its own, or is it aggregated, or if it is aggregated with the other goods or services, can it have a significant impact on the timing of revenue or not? Okay, timing of the revenue recognition. So in order to determine that thing, that one, okay, uh, how many performance obligations are present in the contract, even to see that, the company should apply the guidance that we have discussed now. Now while the customer may be able to benefit from each promised good or service on its own, or readily with other available resources, like if he is satisfying, if he is benefiting from each promised good or service on its own, for example in this water purification plant, if he is benefiting from the project management, engineering and design services alone, I mean any of the benefit alone, or together with other readily available resources, or the separate resources are available in the market readily, okay, they do not appear to be separately identifiable here, because for making a water purification plant you need all the aggregated, you need all the activities like design services, site preparation, physical construction of the plant, procurement of pumps, equipment, you need all this. Okay, so that is a promised goods and services are subject to here integration, significant integration. On significant integration of all this only you can get a water plant. Okay, and as a result it will be treated as a single performance obligation only. So this is consistent with the view that the customer is primarily interested in acquiring a single asset, rather than the collection of related components and services, rather than the collection of related components and services. And the next question here is, see, here he is of the view that customer is primarily interested in single asset only, that is water purification plant. He don't need separate services, and he will not even benefit from the separate services. Next, an entity provides, ninth question is, an entity is providing a broadband services to its customers. Okay, along with the voice customers, he is providing broadband services, and customer buys the modem from the entity. Customer is buying the modem from the entity. However, customer can also get the connection from another entity, from that entity, and the modem from the another vendor also he can get easily. Here he is benefiting from the readily available resource, means he is benefiting even from the other vendor. Here the installation activity requires the limited effort, and the cost involved is also almost insignificant. So it has various plans where it provides either broadband services or voice call services or both. So are the performance obligations under this contract distinct? Here, entity promises to customer. Entity is promising to a customer to provide three services. One is broadband, second voice call, and third is modem. Okay. Okay. To check whether the performance obligation is separate, I mean distinct, under the contract is distinct or not, then you have to see whether the customer is benefiting on its own or with readily available resources, and you should also see that whether the service is separately identifiable from the other promises. If both the criteria should be satisfied. Okay, so here that's what he said in this para. Next para. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what he said in this next para. That is, promise entities promise to provide the goods and services distinct. When the customer can benefit from the goods and services either on its own or together with the other resources that are readily available to the customer, and it is that's when you're saying and both should be satisfied. Second is, entities promise to transfer the good or service to the customer is separately identifiable from the other promise in the contract. So for the broadband and voice call services separately identifiable, and from the other services, as the customer has various plans to provide the two services separately. Okay, for the other services, these two services are not dependent or interrelated. Also, the customer can benefit on its own from the services received. Okay, so this is for the broadband and the voice call services. Okay, these both are separately identifiable, but for the modem, customer can either buy it from the third party also, and also no significant customization is required for that. Okay, so basis on this evaluation, we can say that there are three separate performance obligations, that is broadband, voice call, and modem. Next question is, an entity enters into a contract. Here also power plant for a customer. Here he is entering into a contract for power plant to a customer. I'm really sorry. What it's a cash flow. I'm really sorry on this. I thought, yeah, it's question 10. Entity enters into a contract to build a power plant to a customer. To build what? Power plant to a customer. The entity will be responsible for the overall management of the company, including the services to be provided, like engineering services. So here also for power plant, you have to provide engineering services, clearance, foundation, procurement. So here also procurement services, construction, all these services are, separately. Are they separately identifiable? No. You need an integration. Significant integration is needed. So that's what you have to say. Both the conditions will not satisfy. That is, the customer will not. Uh, will the customer benefit on its own or with readily available resources? No. All the resources should be integrated to build a power plant for a customer. And second one is separately identifiable. Whether they are separately identifiable is no, they are not separately identifiable also. Yeah, they are not separately identifiable. They are supposed to be integrated. Here, based on the discussion, okay, it needs to be determined, okay, that the promised goods and services are capable of being distinct or not. Whether they are capable of being distinct or not, that is, whether the customer can benefit from the goods or services either on its own or together with the readily available resources or not. So this is evidenced by the fact that the entity or the competitors of the entity regularly sells many of these goods or services separately to the other customers. So in addition, the company could also generate the economic benefit from the individual goods and services. They can also benefit by using, consuming, selling, or holding those goods and services. However, the goods and services are not distinct within the context of the contract. Distinct means they are not separate. That is, the entities promised to transfer the individual goods or services in the contract are not separately identifiable from the other contract. They are not distinct. They are not separately identifiable. Okay, this is evidenced by the fact. How it can be evidenced? Because it is evidenced by the fact that the entity provides a significant service of putting together. It is integrating. It is putting together the various inputs or goods and services into a power plant or an output for which the customer has contracted. So since both the criteria has not met, then the goods and services distinct are not distinct. The entity accounts for all of the goods and services in the contract as a single performance obligation. So we have done with 10 questions. So I'll be, uploading 79 questions all together. I mean, in the first video, in the first part of this index 115, it will be 10 questions only. In next, in next coming up videos, we'll continue like 20 questions at a stretch. Okay. So stay tuned for all the parts.